him and I said to him, why can't you just take a whole load of graduates and teach them to trade and then just walk off and phone up every now and then and say, how are things? And he said, well, we've never been able to do that. What you can't do is you can't cookbook trade in the same way you can't cookbook medicine. In other words, you cannot go to a recipe book and make anybody into a surgeon. And you can't go to a recipe book and make anybody a trader. There's something else. There's another dimension. It's something to do with the head. In a case of surgeons, it's hand-eye coordination, decision-making. But you can't do it cookbook. And I think we know that. We know that you can't have a set of rules and apply them rigidly to the markets. Because each second that goes by, that's a new event. You look at that wall, that has never ever been seen before. Even when you get a setup, say you get a vanilla trade, a vanilla setup, it will not be identical to anything else that's gone before. It'll be similar, but it will be unique. And that's what you're doing here. That's all trading is. In fact, Kashif said this, and it can get quite boring. And I think the exciting thing is that we've got the trade room, and there's a community. I think it would be very, very tedious trading on your own, which is what I did for many years. Before we had this. The only physical presence initially was at Cottesmore, although you had clients sort of all over the world, and there was no way of actually communicating with each other, and that was very, very tedious, and it didn't appeal to me because I'm fairly gregarious. I suspect most of you are as well. And having a community makes a huge difference. And you may find that even if you had a micro account, you couldn't bring it down enough. But what really hits the P&L is if you keep rounding down. So if you want a 1.5% capital at risk and you have to round down half a lot, over a year that will make a big difference to the compounding. These things are exquisitely sensitive. It's a typical complex system, and what you've got to resist is if you start off with a small trading capital, is don't expect anything to happen immediately. It just very, very slowly creep up, and then 3 or 4 years later you think, whoa, look where I am now. Well, no, sort of Deep Blue and Kasparov really. Kasparov kept beating Deep Blue, and then Deep Blue beat him. And that's because this is the IBM computer that beat the and there was lots of other things that are going on. But essentially, I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is there are fuzzy systems out there and algorithms that can cope with having a unique situation each time, but recognizing it's quite similar to something that happened in the past. And if you just look at it, you think to yourself, well, what is a vanilla setup? Well, we've got 1-minute boxes leading. They'll be if it's the sort of perfect one, one's leading the 5s, leading the 15s, leading the 60s. And there's a box cluster. The vanilla setups work best when you can see all of the boxes. If the grid's very stretched and you try and break out, then you have a good chance of being reversed, unless there are lots of gaps, I know. And I can't see why some software couldn't recognize that. With curve fitting, so what you do is you have a set of rules based on how something has behaved in the past. And it will behave like that for a while if you're lucky, but nearly all of them are destined to bomb. Well, we sort of creamed off the greatest minds for the last 10 years out of the universities and put them into finance, and they don't, and now sacked them all. We've lost a whole generation of intellects to finance. It's been a huge drain out of the other enterprise that the country does. Well, my experience shouts no, it's the intermittent nature of it that I think is the problem. I was in the military for 12 years, and we used to have field hospitals. Set up a field hospital, and then we'd go into a 3-day exercise where we'd be 4 on, 4 off. And the thing about that taught me about it is trying to keep the team together when the action is only intermittent. And in fact, people perform badly. They were good if you're on a production line and every 30 seconds you had to hit something, then people would, they perform very well. If you said to them, we've no idea when that metal plate's coming along, but when it comes along, you'll have a 30-second window to hit it, I think you'll find that their performance drops off considerably. And it's the intermittent nature that makes it very difficult. And there's something about the psyche of a trader, it's a bit like sort of being in the special forces, where you sit in a hole in the ground for 3 days, get up and shoot somebody and then go home. You've got lots and lots of inactivity, and then you have got to be absolutely right for 10 seconds. And I think that's why I'd be surprised if you could take someone off the street and universally they'd be able to do this.